All right, I'm here with Clint Shamblin from the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. I'm Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss, and we're doing a little crossover episode. On my show, Clint, it is Know Your Enemy, and we're
Okay.
talking all about the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know what you guys do over there, but how you doing, bud?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be an enemy that you get to know.
Yeah, seriously. I actually talked to somebody on the Believe Network about Georgia as well going around. So we're going to get to know basically the Georgia Bulldogs. And just so you know, in this episode, I'm doing a cold open, and everybody heard by three different quotes from Miracle in that video. Yeah, so you can tell where my mind is at the moment.
I feel you. I feel you.
So I do have a question for you. What is it like to cover a team and never have to worry about them losing?
Man, we were just talking about this on the Locked On Bulldogs side of things because it's phenomenal to me to hear Georgia fans, because you come up against Ole Miss and games haven't been covered by point spreads and so on and so forth. And I just try telling everybody, again, reminding them, we are in a 3-run stretch that is historic by every single metric ever calculated in college football. So I think we're spoiled, maybe is the best answer, that Georgia fans are just abjectly spoiled because we're complaining about we didn't beat Mizzou by a large enough margin and they gained over 100 yards rushing against us. Wow. You know, so it's quite phenomenal. I'll tell you this right now. We love betting and FanDuel. We love them. We have made a lot of money in 3 years on the money line for Georgia. Just keep that thing rolling. It's phenomenal. So it's spoiled, Stephen. Maybe that's the best way of saying it.
Well, on my side of the house, I talked about it's like the question we had is, can Ole Miss beat Georgia? And I do believe Ole Miss can beat Georgia, but there's a difference between can, should, and will.
Come on.
And you have to actually do it. But I think Ole Miss has the best running back in the SEC. They have potentially the best wide receiver in the best SEC, and Jackson Dart's playing out of his mind. Offensively, they have the weapons to where they can affect. If Cody Schrader, who was a D2 transfer from game 100 yards rushing. I talked to Corey Burton, who does the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast, and he said Georgia's problem this year is they don't have a dude in the front seven. They don't have a Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter. So the weird thing is, as good as this defense is, this is actually an offensive Georgia team, I think.
You nailed it dead on. The offense, for me, I've said this before, there's no defense in America that scares me against Georgia's offense because we have all levels everywhere around. We're getting healthy on the offensive line. We've lost our best offensive lineman, and we've not given up a ton of sacks. Mizzou got after us a couple times, but on the year, we've been pretty good. Running back health is back up. Kendall Milton is showing out all of a sudden. And it is weird. This defensive line has been much maligned on the edges. We don't have that dude that's getting the pass rush consistently. Up the middle, Ingram Dawkins coming back from 2 games ago, healthy again. Huge addition to this defensive line. But you're right. I call him the eraser, the Nakobe Dean effect, right? The Roquan Smith effect. And the dude we have is in the back end. It's Malachi Starks. Normally for Georgia, that dude's been up front. And so not having him up front, but having on the back end the defense changes the complexity of what Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart want to do. It's very unique. And especially with JDJ, Dumas Johnson going down with injury last week, a fractured forearm. He hasn't been playing amazing. He is not Nakobe Dean, but he sets the entire defense. Well, now we don't have the dude up front, and now we don't have the quarterback of the defense out there, and we're going up against an offense that wants to play fast and wants to do some very unique things and wants to run the ball quite a bit. We were actually talking about that the other day. Ole Miss is effective running the ball this year, very effective. Well, again, like you just said, D2 kid goes all over us. Now we lose our top linebacker. Holy geez. But the offensive side, yeah, I'm fully convinced I will go up against any defense in America. We lost the best college football player, and yet this offense just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. We could beat you a million different ways. So I agree with that, Stephen. It's very unique for Georgia fans to all of a sudden go, oh no, we can throw blow to blow, and maybe we're kind of clutching our pearls a little bit when it comes to the defensive side, which is very unique.
You know, a weird situation. Brock Bowers, I'm seeing some rumors that he's running again, and you're starting to hear some stuff. And I think Brock Bowers is probably going to get out on the field Saturday. I do not think Brock Bowers is going to have a major role, but it's essentially his senior night. It's the last opportunity for him to play in Sanford. I genuinely think that Brock Bowers is going to get on the field, but much like Ole Miss when they played Alabama with Trey Harris and Caden Prescorn, they played, but they weren't themselves. It was a little bit different. What do you say about that?
Yeah, Brock Bowers is running. He is at practice. He did travel the team just to be a force of leadership. It's really phenomenal to me. You would talk about, again, Mims having a very, very similar surgery, and Mims rumored to be back. He dressed and he traveled as well. Brock Bowers isn't human. He's an alien. I don't know what his DNA is. I think the same thing. I think you're right. I think we're going to see him dressed, which is going to get everybody hyped. And Steven could, should, and will. I think you're dead on with that as well, because I too agree. Ole Miss can beat Georgia. This is college football this year is sideways. Like, I don't know what it is sideways in a hurry. And I think senior night, I think having guys on the sidelines that are important. I think Athens at night, Kirby in a top 25 SEC in Athens at night. The dude don't miss. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere. And I think Brock's going to join that. I very fair to say, but certainly not going to be running around like his normal self of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there's three outcomes that would not surprise me and one outcome that would completely shock me. And first of all, if you told me that Georgia just absolutely boat raced Ole Miss like they did against Kentucky, that doesn't surprise me. If Georgia wins a close game, that doesn't surprise me. If Ole Miss wins a close game, that doesn't surprise me. The only thing that would surprise me is if Ole Miss ended up with a boat race. But it's like you said, these games against Kentucky, there's been people coming to Georgia and they're like, hey, this team can finally get them. And then Georgia's up 30-0 at halftime. I say this, Clint, I think the biggest college status symbol in 2023 is to have a team good enough to get blown out by Georgia.
You know what is so that has been like the new niche thing, right? It's like in vogue. All of a sudden, you're like, oh man, we got to go up. We talked about this with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's Super Bowl is to cover against Georgia. Like, that's the status that they're at. And you're right, Kentucky, good team, not a great team. Missed early on. Leary missed a couple of throws that should have been open. Tyke Smith, if you want to just here for your listeners, Ole Miss fans, get on this. Tyke Smith and Bullard are very good safeties. Each half is a different. It's like Jekyll and Hyde with them. When they're good, man, they are thumping and they are covering. When they're bad, Leary should have had 2 touchdowns for Kentucky that were wide open throws and missed it. And that changed the whole trajectory of that game. And then Georgia got it going, and it was like, oh no, now you're in trouble in a hurry. I think those 3 outcomes, dead on, Stephen. I think the spectrum for Ole Miss, as I've watched them, as I've watched Jackson Dart, as he's been running the ball more effectively, which, by the way, this just in, Cook did that against us last week. And Georgia, if you want to get us all in our feels, say mobile quarterback to Georgia fans, and we just lose our minds. So if he runs effectively, this game could be closer than that. Than what many people are saying, which the point spread, by the way, is not that big of a deal. I was kind of shocked by that, really coming into it, but I think that goes to play of what Ole Miss is doing recently. And if the efficiency, Jackson Dart puts efficiency of passing with the efficiency of running, if those two go up together in this game, they could get some points. I'm expecting 21 points from Ole Miss is what I'm projecting in this game. So, but yeah, a boat race. Yeah. If all of a sudden Ole Miss comes out and it's 35-10, that just, I would lose so much respect. I don't think that's possible, but the other 3 outcomes, absolutely.
Yeah. If Ole Miss came out and did that, I think I'd have a parade and I wouldn't be able to do a post-game show because I'd be just completely inside my feels. Anyway, right. When we come back, we are going to talk about some of the ways that Georgia can be successful and what they're going to do, and Ole Miss, what they need to do to combat a team that is in the top 10 in offensive and defensive third down conversions. Third downs are going to be very big in this football game. But right now, I do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time together, you and I, and we get fired up together with wins and losses and who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today I want to chat to be a little bit more personal. I learned that we can get a 1-year supply of ED medication when you realize what that means. Bring on the extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You're covered, my friend, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Revasia. We got 3 different ED medications and we can't cure cancer. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com and receive a 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember, use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply, and I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year supply of your daily med, go to jacemedical.com and see if it is offered to you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. College football season is here, and this season Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. All right, Clint. Now, tomorrow I'm going to do a video, and I do this every week, and for whatever reason, people don't get what it means and what I'm saying, but I do tomorrow my Why Ole Miss Wins episode. So I'm expecting Georgia fans to come up and be all up in there and get ready to bookmark it and all of that. But the video actually is, this is how Ole Miss can win the game, not that Ole Miss is going to win the game. And I think third down is the major issue in this ballgame. Ole Miss cannot afford to get off schedule, because if you get into 3rd and 7+ against this Georgia defense, it's over. You're going to convert like 1 out of 12 in the game. You're not going to be able to get into the tempo that's effective. You're not going to be able to put the points up that can run with this Georgia offense. I think third down conversions are the potentially major aspect of this football game.
You have nailed it. I have 2 keys to this game. Red zone rushing for Ole Miss, not red zone passing, red zone rushing. If Ole Miss gets down in the red zone and can run the ball effectively against Georgia, and then third downs is right. Because if you look at feast or famine, Ole Miss, this is how I put them on third down. It's feast or famine. There's explosive plays on third down, or there's Texas A&M third down, and it doesn't get going quite as much, and it kind of stalls out a couple of times. But you're exactly right. And same thing on the other side of the ball for Ole Miss defense against Georgia's third down offense. Third down offense for Georgia, Carson Beck has been lights out on that time. He gets, when it's 3rd and 8 or more, the dude is actually electric with it. Now combine that with the healthy running game. So you're right. The success rate of Ole Miss on third down, we got a guy, Dawgs Stats. He's fantastic. He does deep dive metrics. The offensive third down success rate is not great for Ole Miss, and for Georgia, top 10 in the nation and in the SEC. Very, very good. Explosive plays for Ole Miss on third down. Again, that feast or famine, they're actually very high on that. So if they get behind schedule, it's going to have to take a plays clicking. It's got to take the Leary Kentucky game, like I said, not missing those throws for Dart. And then when it comes down to the red zone, man, the success rate of third down rushing for Ole Miss in the red zone doesn't look great. It doesn't look promising. If they can get that, if they could flip that script, because the rest of it does look pretty good, all things considered, that's going to be the game. Now, can Ole Miss protect Dart, and can he scramble for it? Because Georgia's coming up with a couple of guys who are rotating now on third down. We got a couple of young guys coming in, because the whole rest of these, Chaz Chambliss, great setting the edge against the run. Not great getting to the passer. For whatever reason, the dude just can't turn that corner. But Jalen Walker is a dude, when he gets his shoulder down, when he turns and leans, it's over for a left tackle, right tackle, and he does switch. Now, he might be at middle linebacker with JDJ being injured, and he might be blitzing quite a bit. So Dogs do have some guys coming in the rotation, especially at edge. And can Jackson Dart get the ball out quickly? Because that's how teams have beat Georgia, or tried to game plan, I should say. They have said, get the ball out. You got 2.2 seconds because havoc is coming. Chaos is coming. They're going to blitz. Glenn's going to bring some double A gaps. Guys on the edge are going to get there. Get the ball out. It's going to come down to third down, Stephen. I think you've rightly pointed that out.
The defensive end that you just mentioned that they're rotating in on pass downs, how is he in run defense?
He's adequate in run defense. I think the edge, what we saw in Missouri last week, is that left off tackle for Missouri. I swear it was like some wishbone offense all of a sudden. They just said, we're going to come at you off tackle all day long. We're going to zone left, zone left, zone left. Chaz is good setting the edge and spilling to the backers. Now, the problem is the backers aren't spilling and scraping over the side and erasing those plays. So if they do set, he is adequate at Jalen. He's more of a pass rush specialist. We've seen him come in. It's a third down package where all of a sudden we take our edge guys, put them inside. Nazir Stackhouse, our defensive tackle, comes out. Ingram Dawkins comes out. Harrison or Marvin goes inside, as well as Michael. And then we get Jalen and a couple other guys, another actually freshman as well. Damon comes in. And so they're very good at getting that lean. Not great, I'd say adequate against the rush and setting that edge. So it's kind of a feast or famine. Chaz, great against setting it, spilling to the outside, doesn't get to the quarterback. So it really comes down to scenario or situational football a great deal on that rotation.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because really third down and 5 to 7, which would normally be a passing set, that's kind of a rundown for Ole Miss. And Ole Miss a lot of times does not make the first down, and that's the reason their third down conversion is down a little bit low, because they're planning on going for it on fourth.
Yes.
Now, if you put in a pass rusher that is not effective against the run, all of a sudden you just made where Ole Miss is going to run the ball a little bit more weak. And if that happens, Ole Miss could have some success with Quinshon Judkins and things like that. This is going to be that chess match, because Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart were on the sideline together at Alabama. These two people know each other well. They know what they like. Lane knows exactly what he has to do to affect that style of defense, because they saw it every day in practice. And I'm not saying that anything is going to get wild. I just think this is another storyline that nobody is talking about.
You know what's so funny? I think it was a joke before. Maybe Georgia fans don't like hearing this, because I think their perception of Lane Kiffin is not great. They don't have high respect for him. And there was this text chain back and forth talking about all the ex-coaches under Saban and texting each other, yada, yada, yada. I actually genuinely think Lane and Kirby are good friends. Like it's not just a show. They are good friends. They know each other. They talk to each other. I think this is going to be a fireworks type situation. One loves offense, one loves defense. It's pretty simple, straightforward in their loves. It is going to be chess matchy. I think there'll be one call, much like against Ohio State last year for Georgia. I think there'll be a timeout that Kirby calls in the middle of the game on that third down when he doesn't have personnel, where he sees something, he feels something that Lane's trying to do. I think situations like that are going to play an effective role in this game. And this is why, again, I get a little consternation with JDJ out, because you're going to have to see things. You have to know film. So when you see tendencies, or you see something a little off, and Lane is going to go for it on fourth, hurry up, get to the line, go for it on third, and get 4 yards, have a yard and a half to go. We're going to be maybe out of position. Kirby has his hands full this weekend with injuries to key positions, and against Lane, somebody he knows very, very well. And it will come down to good coaches. We said on Locked On Bulldogs, and Ole Miss fans, again, we're giving you love. We think Lane is probably the best head coach Kirby's played all year. No offense to Drink. He's not the same status of that. No offense to Stoops at Kentucky. He can't get over the big one. And maybe Lane has a little bit of that moniker so far, specifically with Alabama. But he's a good coach, and we give him a lot of respect. This is the best coaching matchup all year for Georgia.
One interesting situation with Lane Kiffin and what's going on is, with the Lane going forward on fourth down, is so much that it can be an avalanche if you don't get successful against Georgia. It's going to be a night game at Georgia. It's senior night. They're going to be juiced up. It's a top 10 matchup. It is the best game that Georgia's played all season as far as looking up for it. You have to be pragmatic when you choose and pick your point to go for it, or else you'll end up in a situation like Billy Napier saw himself in 2 weeks ago. 4th and 1 is a trap against the Georgia Bulldogs. And if you don't treat it like that, you're going to get burned and you're going to find yourself at halftime, the game's over.
Ask Tennessee how that went. Number 1 ranked Tennessee comes into Athens high on their horse. And by the middle of the second quarter, the game was over. Like Kirby started running the ball. It was raining and he knew he had them and he started milking the clock before halftime. You're exactly right. Ask Tennessee. It gets sideways in a hurry against Georgia. And if that avalanche, well said. Now, Lane, when he starts going for it on 4th, actually the effectiveness, he gets over 40% effective rate for the whole entire game, including 4th down. First 3 downs, it's not great. It's under the 35%. You get 4th downs. Okay, effectiveness increases. Only takes a couple of those where you're giving the ball back to Carson Beck midfield and he finds Ladd McConkey for a 45-yarder because Mike Bobo is cooking in his bag right now. I'm loving Mike Bobo as OC. It gets weird in a hurry. I would just caution Lane. If I'm with you. Punt sometimes, brother, if you don't want this game going bad in a hurry, because you have the offense where if it's clicking, you're going to be able to move. Again, I'm predicting 21 points for Ole Miss. That's kind of right around my floor, actually, right now with the injuries that are happening to Georgia's defense. That gets you within a puncher's shot if you don't shoot yourself in the foot and you don't give the ball back to a very, very potent offense midfield. So caution is probably the right word.
Whenever we come back, we're going to get into our picks and all that. And I'm going to, Homer's in the name, everybody. Get ready. I'm about to pick Ole Miss to win this game. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens. And I want to hear your perspective on that as well. But right now, I do want to let everybody know that this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy sports leader, the oldest platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you get to just simply pick more or less than 2 to 6 players on stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And they're the easiest and the most exciting way to play DFS. All right. Daily fantasy sports. And with basketball season here, you can now pick a combo projection across football and basketball across the Specials League, a league created especially for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports and leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at 10.5, 3 points made and receptions. That's actually kind of cool. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit matchup to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit matchup to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. And also the Rebels play the Georgia Bulldogs Saturday night at 6 p.m. Central Time. It's a chance to listen to David Kellum and the Rebels' hometown crew as Ole Miss looks to continue their run. Georgia having senior night. I'm sure they have an announcer that everybody is impressed with as well. Check out that home team broadcast with Ole Miss on 192 on Sirius XM, and Georgia, I think it's on 82 or on the SXM app. Search Ole Miss Rebels or Georgia Bulldogs. All right, Clint, you have a situation. We're looking at the finality of this, and I think that Georgia tends to be inevitable in the fourth quarter of games. There's lots of people that are right in it, and just Georgia's talent, well coaching, all of that just become inevitable. But this is what I think. Ole Miss is top 5 in the country in sacks. And there isn't somebody that has been able to consistently get Carson Beck to drop his eyes and get him off his spot. I think if Ole Miss can get pressure against that offensive line, which whenever they're on, and Carson Beck just is back there playing 7-on-7, I think if that happens, all of a sudden some mistakes can be made and Carson Beck can look like a first-year starter at times instead of like this Heisman Trophy candidate that's out there just dealing. I think that Ole Miss has a chance to win this game, and I'm going to take Ole Miss 34-31 in this game.
Look, here's this offensive line, Carson Beck, and how it does. Look at Missouri. Look at the game plan Missouri had. And Ole Miss, could follow that. Missouri had 2 weeks to prepare, and it was much like Florida. Florida had 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia, and they came out the first 2 drives, and it was surgical. And then after that, what happened was Kirby made adjustments, and absolutely, we call it the death march, where he just says, I'm going to run at you for 8 minutes and I'm going to suffocate you. And there's nothing you could do. We're going to fight in the phone booth and I'm going to win. He believes, and his teams believe every single year, if they are somewhere competitive, and even not competitive, if they're within striking distance, third and fourth quarter, they will. It is inevitable for them. And so you saw Missouri get to Carson Beck. And in the first half, man, Drinkovitz was all up in his feels on that sideline. And you saw him ecstatic and hooping and hollering. Fourth quarter, Drinkovitz had his arms folded. He was quiet and he wasn't moving because Kirby did his thing. If Ole Miss, if that prediction has come true, there is literally not 1 second of this game that can be let off the gas pedal. There is no ebb and flow. You have to get a large lead, and no lead is safe against Kirby in the second half. 0 lead because the guy just doesn't care. Watch him in halftime when he does that stupid interview as they're coming off the field and they ask him questions. He just says, like, I don't know, guys, I'm going to go in the locker room, talk to my guys. We're going to come out and we're going to handle business every single time. Stop asking me questions. You're right. And this team is resilient, and Carson Beck will make adjustments and they'll get the rotation in. Mike Bobo is masterclass at adjustments. It's where I think this Georgia coaching staff, besides recruiting trail, does the most work possible. It's what is Ole Miss doing to us, or Missouri, and how do we respond? That's the second best trait of this entire coaching staff. So if Ole Miss, if the Rebels are looking to get that upset, they're going to have to make a master plan that is the entire game. And it can't be. I actually think you're probably close in my prediction of this game as well for Georgia's. I have 34 points for Georgia. I have 21 for Ole Miss. I think there'll be a couple of shots. I do think Judson does get a long run. If I'm going to be honest, I think maybe even some play. I don't know if Ole Miss has this in their bag, but Missouri had a few of this. Florida had a few of this, where it's kind of a different option read. It's not the typical speed option or triple option. It's a screen game. It's the RPOs that aren't RPOs really, that are kind of dart threatens, and then it's a quick little thing, quick hitter to somebody else as he's threatening the line of scrimmage. I think Judson's going to have one of those 40-yard runs in him this week. I really do. I think 21 points is before half. That's my prediction as well. And I think the rest of the half, it's going to be shored up by Georgia and the adjustments they give. So you know Georgia very well. It's the anaconda. It doesn't kill you at first, but man, over a long time, you're just suffocated to death by it.
Yeah, we had Alabama in our division. We saw them every year. We're familiar with what Kirby does. It's the same thing. And so, I mean, Hugh Freeze beat Alabama twice, and they did it with mobile quarterbacks and stuff like that. So we know the formula. And like I said, somebody has to beat Georgia eventually. I don't necessarily believe it, but I'm going to do the Homer thing and take that and be completely all in. Yeah. I mean, you guys have won, what is it, 45 out of 46 and
it's so good.
Yeah, 26 games in a row. And the last coach that beat you at home was on your sideline. It's Will Muschamp.
Yes.
And it's just like, okay. But like I said in the beginning of the show, the whole intro to this crossover is me quoting the movie Miracle. And
love it.
And that's just to let you know where I am. It's like, if you play Georgia 100 times, they might beat you 99, but not this time.
Just takes the one. Missouri was a good team. I actually really, really respect Missouri. I think they lose this week to Tennessee, and a massive letdown because they got all hyped for Georgia. I think they lose to Tennessee. But if I'm looking at the spectrum of outcomes, like you said, Ole Miss could really, really get going against. Missouri had to play the game they did, and it was always going to be close. There was no other way for Missouri to win except by a 3-point or a 6-point or a 1-point win, something like that. I think Ole Miss does have the possibility of getting 10 points at night home against Georgia senior, like you said, or it could be that, 40 to 35 game as well. The spectrum is just wildly big because yeah, I trust Lane's ability to score points and to know an Alabama system that has come over in the DNA of Kirby Smart. And yeah, you should. Everybody calls us homers in the comments section, and I say thank you. Like, thank you for calling me a homer. This is a compliment.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't do this if I was a neutral, you know. Yes. I do this because I love doing this.
That's right.
Real quick before I get out of here, if for some reason, let's say Ole Miss is up by 3 points in the fourth quarter, with knowing what is coming, with Tennessee coming up next and Alabama coming up next, and how the season could go sideways on Georgia, do you think they will tighten up?
I actually think they're going to be nice and loose heading into this. It's so weird how I was just talking to Daniel about my co-host about this the other day. If Georgia takes a loss the next two games, one of the next two games, I have full confidence that Alabama is going to get absolutely slammed by us in the SEC championship. I think it's going to be loose for this game because of everything you're saying. We're getting Ole Miss at the perfect time for us. Like, I really do feel bad for Ole Miss. If this was a different week, if this was a different time, I do, because I think the environment has so much to play. Everyone's going to be playing. Look at Notre Dame when they came to our house. You know, that's the atmosphere. And Notre Dame did not fare well at all in that game. That's the type of atmosphere. I don't think they play tight. I think they play nice and loose, especially on offense as they're getting guys back healthy. Kendall Milton, to me, I think has an explosive game. Dejon Edwards, Kendall Milton in the run game against Ole Miss. Like you said, the sacks and the pressure, they want to get that going. Nothing like that, but a 225 running back who can absolutely burn up the field in the middle with a very, very good running, blocking interior line. So I think that's where Georgia's going to attack Ole Miss this game.
Yeah, and I always tell people on my show, is like, hey, do not be surprised if a team full of 4- and 5-star players play like a team like full of 4- or 5-star players.
Yes,
never.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I said before the Alabama game after the South Florida thing. It's like, do not be surprised about that. It's in the tank.
Yes,
I will say this before I get out of here. I do think Texas A&M probably has a better front seven, and that was a good scout team leading into the Georgia game going up against that group.
Yeah, I mean, Kamari Lassiter, and we have a new corner. I really, really hope Dalen Everett on the other side for Georgia got absolutely lambasted, and I think we're going to rotate him out with some other dudes. But Kamari Lassiter, Malachi Starks, Bullard, the defensive backs are good, and they leave them on islands all the time because we have to blitz to get pressure because our front seven is not what it was before. And so the strength of the defense is certainly in the back, the front seven, and Ole Miss runs I was maybe pleasantly shocked to find out just how effective the run game is for Ole Miss. And that's where a lot of this game is going to have to come down to. Ole Miss fans might not want to hear that. There's going to be a slog fest running the ball quite a bit, but you're right. You guys fared well against a better front seven than when we have coming in this week.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm excited about it. And I'm just excited that Ole Miss is playing these games at this point. We're still in the build. You know, it's not the whole thing where you're just like, we're not covering and all that. We're still building and going up. So I'm just excited that game day is covering an Ole Miss game in the middle of November, because game day is not there unless you're relevant.
That's right.
They're not showing up for no reason. So it's pretty great, because as Ole Miss is built, and I followed them for like the last 30 years, it's just been a steady incline. And that is pretty cool for me. Anyway, Clint, everybody, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Both my show and his show is free and available for whatever you get your podcast, wherever it is. You can check it out there, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Clint, thank you so much, buddy, and good luck this weekend. Are you going to the game?
We will not be at the game, unfortunately, kids and all that sort of duty. And we were at Kentucky game already. Senior night is going to be electric. We wish we were there. You going to be there?
No, I'm not going to be there. Although I am going to watch the game in 4K, because ESPN has the 4K option on YouTube. Yeah.
Come on now.
All right. Anyway, take care and have a good one, man. Good luck.
Same to you.